As we continue our exploration of the prophets, we turn our attention to the book of Jeremiah. Before we jump into the book, let's look at the historical setting. The book you studied in the last session, Isaiah, was written long before Jeremiah. During Isaiah's life, the Assyrian Empire ruled the area. The book of Jeremiah was written over a century later, during the peak of the Babylonian Empire. The Assyrian Empire was defeated by the Babylonians, who created a new, larger empire. Babylon attacked the southern kingdom and sent many of the leaders and elites of the nation into exile and back to Babylon. After this, the king of Judah, or the southern kingdom, foolishly decided to revolt against Babylon. Hezekiah and the Israelites felt convinced that being the people of God offered them automatic protection without taking any responsibility. So picking up in this session, the prophet Jeremiah delivers his message as the Babylonian army draws near. The army soon destroys the nation and sends the remaining Israelites into exile. Your reading in Jeremiah revolves around the central message of the book. The people have a false confidence in God. They claim the protection of God without really being the people of God. Chapter 4 demonstrates the way Jeremiah is trying to wake the people up. They are spiritually unresponsive to what God expects of them. If they fail to respond, Jeremiah tells them that destruction is coming from the north, destruction from Babylon. There are several reasons for Jeremiah's cry of judgment. In chapter 7, Jeremiah scolds their ethics and their behavior. The Israelites claim to be the people of God, but do things out of greed for their own gain. They are oppressing immigrants, orphans, and widows. What is especially condemning in this chapter is that the people believe that if they simply offer sacrifices to God, they will remain the people of God. The book of Jeremiah warns us about hiding behind religious actions as evidence of our faithfulness to God. In Jeremiah chapter 19, we read of another reason for God's judgment. Here, the people are charged with idolatry. The worship of other gods is a violation of the first and central commandment of the Old Testament in Exodus chapter 20, verse 3, which states, "You shall have no other gods before me." God's message of judgment is illustrated with the holding up and smashing of a jar. In the same way, God allows the Babylonians to destroy Judah. The reading from Jeremiah chapter 23 also highlighted another reason for God's anger. The religious leadership, the priests and prophets, declare that God is on their side. They speak to the people falsely about God and lead the people to believe that God favors them when He doesn't. The book of Jeremiah is more than just a declaration of judgment. It is an insight into the life of a prophet. Chapters 1 and 20 remind us that Jeremiah is not a willing prophet. He doesn't want to deliver this message, and he has good reason for it. Our reading reveals how declaring the will of God results in Jeremiah being beaten and imprisoned. But this is not the central cause of his hesitancy. In the remainder of chapter 20, Jeremiah despises having been given the responsibility of prophesying. He despises it so much that he curses the day he was born. Jeremiah hates this task because it requires him to speak condemnation to the people he loves. In fact, Jeremiah is so sorrowful over the role he has to play that he is now known as the weeping prophet. Jeremiah's sorrow over what happened to his people is what makes up the Book of Lamentations, a series of sorrowful songs. Finally, to fully understand this book, we have to understand it within a larger context. The power of the book of Jeremiah is highlighted when we compare it to the book of Isaiah. The book of Isaiah calls us to have confidence in God, but the book of Jeremiah warns us against a false confidence in God. The book of Jeremiah tells us that if we are truly the people of God, God will be for us. It also explains that if we attempt to be the people of God by what we say and not by what we do, God will be against us. The connections between Isaiah and Jeremiah remind us that the Bible is an orchestra, not 66 individual instruments. Consider what you've learned as you explore how the study of this book applies to your life by answering the relational questions.